All right, guys, let's start our class today. Okay, yep. Welcome back, everyone. So today, this class is going to be the last one of this course. So I appreciate you, joining to this class, either in person or through Zoom. So today we are going to, discuss the last piece of the heap polling, which is Fastbean's double-free vulnerability. And besides that, we will talk about the setup of our, assignment 3 and the final. So as you may already know, we are not going to have a final CTF, but instead we're going to make it in a way that, you will have 1 week, which is the final week, to make up the assignment that or make up those challenges that you did not achieve in previous assignments. So let me go to the next slide. So first is that, as I said, assignment 3 is released. So the deadline is the end of this week. So I hope that you already received that message through our Discord announcement. So you're not like just knowing right now. So yeah. And then besides that, the way that we structure the final is that we are going to score you based on the total number of challenges that you solved throughout this entire semester, including assignment 3. Okay, so like all the 3 assignments together, and then in total, that is 28 challenges. So we're gonna score, every challenge will worth 4 points. So if the total score of this final is 100, then you will be able to get 112, maximum. And we're gonna, convert that then, from 100%, 100 points to 10% of your overall, your final score, like your total score. Okay. And then and the due for the final is going to be the end of next Sunday. Okay. So it's going to be the end of May the 7th. So I'm hoping that you can have 1 more week to, make up those assignments, those challenges that you didn't know how to solve yet, right? And then in the meanwhile, if you already solve those challenges, say that you already have full score for assignment 1 and 2, and say that, in next week or by the assignment 3's due, you already solve all the challenges from assignment 3, then you're not going to have anything that you need to do for final, and I will give you full score. So the reason why I have this set up for final is mostly for those that did not perform very well in previous assignments and want to have a chance to fix the performance issue. So like now where you can use this final as an opportunity for you to catch up. All right. Okay. So is there any questions regarding, final logistics assignment? Yes.
Does the 28 challenges include the bonus challenges?
Yes. Everything.
So if I don't, say I skip the bonus challenges, I will get less than like 10% of money.
Yes. So, but then, like as I said, the final also has 12 points of bonus, right? So that's like 3 more challenges, right? Because every challenge is 4 points, right? So this means that if you skip, say, 3 challenges in previous assignments, you take that as a bonus, then you can still get full score for your final. Okay. And then I also want to, announce the kind of like the final scores computation, the proportion, of assignments and final and the participation. So as I mentioned at the very start of our class of, the entire semester, at the beginning of the semester, I mentioned that the assignments will account for 85% of your final score, and it's still the same. We keep it. So each assignment will account for 28.33%. So the way that it works is that, say that for assignment 3, there are 11 challenges in total, right? and then I told you that the full score is 10, and you will have 1 point for bonus, right? So in that case, then what we're going to do is that if you solve all 11 challenges, then your assignment one score will be 11 over 10 and then times 28.33. So we're going to like convert that to the 28.33 proportion. So that will become the parts that you get for a final, for a total score. And similarly, the final will account for 15% and participation will account for 10%. So like again, like if you add these three pieces together, it's still gonna over 10%. So you have like an actual 10% of bonus for your overall score. Because I don't really want to give you guys bad score. I'm just trying to give you as much bonus as possible. Okay. Also, track, I was saying, is to be released, and actually now you have a way to track your current score now. So it is the same IP, as the lab, and then the port number is 10000. Let me just update this slide real quick. Okay, yeah. So now you can netcat to the server with that port, and then it will ask you for your ASU right. And then once you enter your ASU right, it will be able to tell you your current score, which includes your assignment 1 score, assignment 2s, and then the current participation, not including this week. So today's participation. Okay, so you will see that you may say like, oh, your current participation is 9 point something out of 10. It's just purely because today's or this week's participation is not accounted yet. So if you do, log in yourself, you do register yourself this week, then you'll get a full score for your participation. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, this is how it works. And if there's no questions, yes.
Doesn't work for me, but I tried Netcat, it's connection.
Okay, yeah, I will take a look later on. I think there might be some reasons because of, let me just check there real quick. Oh, well, I will fix that while you guys are doing the lab of today, okay? So, yeah, probably there is some firewall issues that I need to fix. All right, so, yeah, now let's go to the technical part of our today's lecture, which is the use after free, the double free for fast bean. I suppose that you already watched the video. So, and I want to make it very fast because I also have a piece which is the overview of our entire course, at the end of the day. So to move on this part fast, I'm not going to go through the slides, but instead I will directly jump into the lab and give you some time to, work on the lab. And later on, I will use that lab to demonstrate double free vulnerabilities, just like what we did before. Okay. All right. So let me go to slides real quick. Okay. So, it's the same IP address, and then the port is 16666. And there are 4 files that are available, and you can download the file and interact with the service. All right, and in the meanwhile, the grade query service should be available now. You can try that again. Okay, guys, let's work on this challenge together. So first of all, just double confirm, can you see all the three panels clearly? Do you need to zoom in, let it like make it bigger or not? No, it's all good. Okay, cool. So as you already browsed the code, and I suppose that you already know, this is a double free vulnerability, right? So you want to use the double free vulnerability resides in the fast bin in order to trigger the vulnerability and achieve arbitrary execution. And in this case, what you want to do is that you want to execute the function win, right? So you want to make sure that the function win will, like the address of function win will store in the place that you can invoke, basically, right? Okay, so like, let's see how we can achieve this high level goal, all right? So, the first thing first is that we want to construct the layout of the free chunk, like the free list layout for Tcache bin and the fast bin in the way shows in the left, right? So in the left-hand side, we show the hypothetical structure that we hope to achieve. And then in this structure, we have, some free chunks in Tcache bin. And more importantly, we have one chunk that has been freed for twice in fast bin, which is the blue chunk, right? Okay, good. So now let's first use malloc and the free to construct the memory layout in this way, okay? So can someone tell me how to make this happen? How you can, malloc and free to make Tcache bin and fast bin lace in this way? Yes. Yes. Exactly. So first you want to malloc, a number of chunks, and then you're going to free them one by one, and then use those free to first to fill Tcache and later on fill fast bins, right? And also you want to free the blue one for twice so that you will be able to have one chunk that has been freed twice in fast bin. Okay, good. So let's do this together. I have write the code on the left-hand side. So like, as it shows in the center panel, we're gonna first, malloc 9 chunks, right? Actually, this is index 0 through 8, right? So we malloc 9 chunks together, all together, and then we're gonna free the first 7 chunks, and those free chunks are going to, live in Tcache bin, right? Okay, and now I am going to run the program. And I am going to set a breakpoint right after the read so that we can check the bins every time that it parses a command. All right, so let's continue. We continue this, say, for 8 times. Okay. Okay, so now we start to have, some chunks available in Tcache bins. And then we just continue for 6 more times. Check the current bins. Now we have filled up all the Tcache bins. And at this point, we are at this location, right? Okay, so then the next is that we want to free the other 2 more chunks, because in that case, after we free these 2 chunks, those free chunks will go to fast bin, right? Okay, so we just let the program run. So now basically what I set a breakpoint in this panel so that every time I hit continue, next time when it stops, it finishes processing one of the commands that I put on the center panel, just so you know. Okay, all right. So I do one more time of continue. And let's check the bins. Good. Now we have, 2 bins that is available on the fast bins. So 2 chunks that are available in fast bins free list. Okay. Good. And then next, we are going to go to the third step, which is to trigger the double free, right? And that means that we want to free this chunk again, right? Which is chunk number 7. We want to free this chunk again so that we will be able to get this diagram, like get the chunk layout in this way. We have the blue chunk, which is the one that is 330, right? So we want to have the blue points to the black and then points to blue again, okay? All right, so now let's continue. And then set the bins again. So now we see that there is 330, and then 330 points to 350, and then 350 points 330 again, right? Okay, so now we have this layout. We have the blue points to the black and the black points to the blue, right? And now in terms of the attack, we're finished. We just finished step number 3, okay? All right, so after that, we want to free, or say we want to free the free list. It means that we want to use malloc to, empty the Tcache bins free list, right? So that means that we want to empty them all. And in order to that, we will need to malloc the chunk for 7 times, right? Okay, so we're going to do that, which is step number 4, right? So we do 7 times of malloc, right? Okay, so now the program is there. Let's check the program's current layout. Okay, this is aligned with the left-hand side diagram, right? So we have 0 stuff, we have empty Tcache bins free list. And also in the meanwhile, we still have 3 elements in fast bins free list, right? Okay, good. So then next, we want to do malloc again, okay? And if you look at the left-hand side, I'm going to show you what will happen when this malloc happens, okay? So if you remember last time when we talked about use after free, we mentioned that, the first element in fast bin will be returned to malloc. And also the rest of the chunks in fast bin will be moved from fast bin to Tcache bin and then refill Tcache bin, right? So in this case, if say that we have a pointer that points to the fast bins element, it will first return the first element back to malloc and then use this pointer to go to the next chunk and then insert that to the head of the Tcache bin and then move to the next and then insert, and then move to next, so on and so forth, unless Tcache bin is full, means that unless we have moved 7 items to Tcache bin, okay? All right, so now let's just simulate what happens using the left-hand side diagram, all right? So as I said, at the beginning, we have a pointer that points to the head of the fast bin, right? And then we use that pointer to return it back to malloc. So like use this pointer, we tell malloc that this time, by the time that you return, use this chunk, right? Okay, and then after that, this pointer will move to the next chunk and then move this chunk to Tcache bin, right? And the way that it works is that it points to this chunk and then move it there. And also because this chunk will become the first element in Tcache bin, as well as the currently last element in Tcache bin, right? So that's why the forward pointer, this field will be filled with 0, right? So remember that previously, before this movement, forward pointer will point to the next available chunk, right? And then after this movement, the current black chunk will contain a forward pointer with 0, okay? And this is important. I will tell you why later on, all right? So now let's say that this is already 0, and then this black pointer, which is the one responding, for the movement from fast bin to Tcache bin, will do the next time, like do the next durations of movement, okay? So now it goes to the blue chunk again, because we have this double free before, so that if you look at the fast beans free list, it will look like that blue chunk occurs there for twice, right? So it look like this blue chunk has two appearances. So that's why next time we will still have this black pointer points to the blue chunk, okay? And then this blue chunk will be moved to Tcache bin. And again, this will point to the start of the Tcache bin, right? So it will be moved in this way. And also keep in mind that this black pointer will always point to the next available chunk. And in this case, because the current forward pointer in blue chunk will still point to the black chunk. So that's why glibc will still consider there is another black chunk available. Okay, does it make sense? All right, so if this makes sense to you, then, after this blue chunk moved from fast bin to Tcache bin, this black pointer, the one that is responsible for movement, will look at the black chunk again, right? Because originally the blue chunk was pointing to the black chunk, right? Okay, so after this movement, it will move this black chunk again to the Tcache bin. So if you look at the Tcache bin, it will look like as if there are two black chunks and one blue chunk. So it will look like that the black chunk was freed for twice. Okay. So I want you to, be careful for this part, because this is very different from what we did for used after free before, and also the double free that we did for Tcache. So although at the beginning, we freed the blue chunk for twice, by the time that we call malloc again, when we look at the Tcache bin after this malloc operation, it will look like as if the black chunk was freed for twice in Tcache. Okay? All right? Okay, so now let's do this on the right-hand side and see what's going on. All right? So now, keep in mind that now we have this fast bins linkage, right? We have, this is blue chunk, which is 330. So blue chunk points to the black chunk, which is at 350, right? And then the black chunk points to blue chunk again, which is 330. Okay? So now we are going to do one time of malloc, which is this malloc. Okay? So we're going to do this malloc and see what's going on after this malloc. Okay? All right. So we do one time and let's check the bins. First of all, nothing in fast bins, right? Everything was moved to Tcache bins. Okay. And then the second, let's check the addresses, check those chunks in Tcache bins. So now it's become 60, 40, and 60, right? First of all, you may find that none of those address has been in Tcache bins before, right? Which is because for Tcache bin, the pointer will always point to the start of the chunk. Sorry, for fast bins, the pointer will always point to the start of the chunk, whereas for Tcache bin, the pointer will always point to the start of the data, which is going to be 10 bytes, hex 10 bytes, after the start of the chunk, right? So that's why you found that we will no longer have 330 or 350, but instead we have 340 and 360, right? Because you have this 10 bytes, hex 10 bytes shift, okay? And in the meanwhile, we realize that 360 is the same chunk as the one with 350, right? Which is the black chunk, right? And 340 is the start of the data for the blue chunk, which starts at 330, right? So that now you figured out what we have is the black chunk points to the blue chunk and then points to the black chunk, right? Which is the same as what we show here in the left-hand side diagram. All right. Okay. I hope this makes sense to you. And if you want me to repeat, I think now is the perfect time to let me know. Okay. So it sounds like you don't need to repeat. Should I continue? Yes. Okay. So after that, this will be identical to Tcash double free, right? It's just like in this case, it's the black chunk that got double free, right? And then similar to what we did for the Tcash bean, what we want to do is that, we can, use we can, get the free chunk and then let the metadata points to somewhere that is edible, the victim, and then write things like that, like write, victim's value. What we do here is that, we added a chunk after the blue chunk, right? And then later on we do malloc 1 time, 2 time, and then 3 time, so that we can get this orange fake chunk, and then we can put the victim's address, which is going to be the Vim function right there. And in this case, we can still use GOT table because now we're at Tcash bin, we're not in fast bin. There's no additional additional condition, restricted condition for the fake chunk. So that's why we can still use the GOT table entry. So here what we do is that, we added the blue chunks metadata's value, right? And then we do free malloc again. So if we look at the chunks, after that, okay, and then we continue. We do beans again. So now we have this blue chunk, black chunk points to the blue chunk, and then blue chunk points to the GOT tables entry, right? Okay, and then after that, we do 3 times of malloc, which will obtain this GOT tables entry, and then we rewrite the values there to the Vim function. Now we should have an empty Tcash beans. You will see the value there, but all you want to care about is this, this items, like this tells you the current available items in Tcash beans, and which is 0 in this case. Okay. And then after that, we just continue, let it run. So we are going to do a malloc 8. Continue, and it will ask you for your ASR write, means that you're executing your Vim function. All right, cool. Okay, so yeah, that's it for fast beans double free. So in a nutshell, what you do is that you want to convert a fast beans double free to a Tcash beans double free. And the way that it works is that you free a chunk for twice, right? But then you put another chunk in the middle of this free. So it's like you free the blue chunk for twice, but then it is the black chunk in the middle of this 2 times of free chunks that will become another free chunk that are free twice in Tcash bin, which is slightly different from, fast beans used after free. So it's like fast beans used after free is something they could use directly, right? But then for Tcash beans double free, the chunk that you free for twice is not exactly the chunk that later on being used for twice later on because of this, reverse movement from fast bean to Tcash bean. So that's something that you need to be a little bit careful. Okay, good. And also, I hope that now you also know a way that you can debug your program. So normally what I did is that you set a breakpoint at the place that the program is about to process the string that you provide to the program. So that like you set a breakpoint there so that every time that you finish, like the program that finished an operation, you can check the beans situation over there. Okay, so this is what I did as well. So like, I find the instruction that right after the read in the vulnerable program. And then after that, I check the bin situation every time that the program reads something from me. All right. Okay. Let me pause my virtual machine. And now let's go to the overview. Okay. So now I like to do a, semester-wise review, try to kind of recap what we have done in this entire semester. So if you remember, for this semester, we talk all different kind of polling, or say like all different kinds of demonstrating the existence of vulnerabilities. We talk about different vulnerabilities, different types of vulnerabilities, and we talk about how to exploit these vulnerabilities. Although keep in mind that the goal for this course is not to teach you, how to attack other people's machine. It's just to show you that how you can potentially demonstrate to the other people for those vulnerabilities. So we mentioned about 3 different, categories. One is, I call it MISC, miscellaneous, and the second is a stack, kind of a stack vulnerabilities, and the third is heap vulnerabilities. Okay, so for MISC, we talk about, I mentioned 2 different types of vulnerabilities. One is command line, and then the other is directory traversal. So command line injection vulnerability happens when you use system. In C, or say like in Python, you have like os.system. Basically, this kind of API doesn't sanitize the command. It will just treat the entire command as like a shell command and then just directly put into shell to let it process. So because of that, you can make this command, composed of multiple commands using semicolon, right? So like you use semicolon to separate multiple commands, and then by the time you call system, it will parse them all and then process them all. So you don't want this happen when you write the code by yourself. And a very easy way to avoid this is to use, execv or execute like all those kind of families APIs, which will guarantee that every time it will only invoke one process that, process the command. It will not like parse those commands executed command by command. Okay. And for directly traversal, it will happen if there is no good like sanitization on the path. So if there is the directory which compose, part of the string that can be controlled by user, or say /attacker, then you can include, like .. like include those, specifiers for path to traverse, right? And then because of that, using this user controllable path, the attacker can go to somewhere that is not controllable, or that is not permitted by the attackers to visit, right? So that's why, for example, if the user input contains something like .. right? And then you can go to the upper directory, right? And then because of that, if that directly does not actually allow the attackers to access, but attackers use this way, then attacker may have a chance to access that directory, okay? And in order to prevent this from happening, you want to do first, you can add a sanity check for users input, making sure that the user's input doesn't include those fancy, direct traversal specifiers. Or second, what you could do is you want to make sure that you set up the permission of the directory property in the case so that even though that the attacker wants to visit that directory, because of that, the permission that you set system-wise, like chmod, right? Like using that, even though the attacker wants to access that directory, due to the access control configured for that directory. There's no way for the attackers to get any information. And this is exactly what we did, in Dojo, when you guys like doing this challenge and want to access the content from a flag, because we already set the permission of the flag property so that when you run your program on your environment, as the count of hacker, right, in a group of hacker, they're not allowed to read from anything, read anything from the flag file. All right. Okay, so that's all about MISC. And then we goes to memory corruption vulnerability. And we talk about stack and we talk about heap, right? So overall, the higher level goal for memory corruption is to convert a memory corruption, which is just to crash the program, to a more powerful, manipulation, which is to arbitrarily execute, code that can be controlled by attackers. And the way is that we want to take advantage of the vulnerability to overwrite, an instruction pointer with a malicious code pointer. And when I say instruction pointers, it can be, a saved return address on stack, right? Or it can be the GOT table entry, or it can be a hooked functions, a hooked function variables in glibc, right? So those are all possible instruction pointers, means that those are going to be something that the program will read and jump to, right, to call. And when I say malicious code pointers, it means that those are the locations that will contain the malicious execution. For example, it can be the winning function, right? Like it can be the part of the function that we want to call. It can be a shellcode, like the start of the shellcode, which contains the instructions that the users or the attackers inserted to the program. Or it can be a rob gadget, right? So it's like it's going to become the a consecutive sequence of addresses, and each of the address points to part of the program in libc or in other libraries that you can let the program to execute. All right, and then comes to the vulnerabilities. So we talk about Stack Overflow, which is to overflow a buffer on the stack all the way to the saved return address. And then we overwrite that saved return address with malicious instructions, which can be winning function or the shellcode or the gadget, right? Okay, and then for format string, the high level idea is to specify, is to find an address that we want to overwrite, right? And then to do that, that address, it can be the address on the stack. It can be, the address that specifies the GOT table, right? And then we want to use mostly like %n, this specifier that will be able to let us to write some value to some address. And then in order to, control or manipulate the number of bytes outputs before this %n specifier, we can control the values that we want to overwrite, right? Overwrite with. And also using the pointers, right? The %n pointers, and also along with the positional argument, we can specify the address that we want to write to, so that we can achieve this goal of, overwrite the particular address with a particular value. All right. Okay. And then for heap, we talk about, use after free, double free, and overflow. And for Tcache, used after free, the high level idea is that we found a chunk which has been freed and also can be used again. Means that there is a chunk that is in the free list, but then this also can be accessed by attackers or say users. And because of that, the users can access and change the chunk's metadata information to let it link to a victim chunk, right? And for double free, the idea is that you have a chunk and then you free that for twice, means that after that twice, 2 times of a free, if you do one time of malloc, you will have this chunk back to you like as attacker. So you will still construct the scenario that you have the same chunk that is both in use and in the free list. And then because of that chunk that is currently in use, you can add the chunk. And also because it is the same chunk that is still in free list, you can add this chunk so that the chunk will point to a victim pointer, right? A victim chunk. And then after that, once you free the chunk for multiple times, when I say free the chunk for multiple times, actually means that once you malloc, you call malloc for multiple times, you'll be able to gain the victim so that you can start to do arbitrary read and write and transfer that to arbitrary execution. Okay, and then for T-cache overflow, what you're gonna do is that if you have, say, two chunks that are consecutive, and then say chunk 0 and chunk 1, and the chunk 1 is currently still freed, but then chunk 0 is in use. And what you could do is you can write chunk 0, right? Because currently it's in use. And you can overflow it to write it across the boundary so that you can change the metadata in chunk 1. And then you can let chunks 1's, metadata to point to, like a victim pointer so that you can, use malloc to gain the victim pointer, similarly to what we did for use of the free and the double free. Then we talk about fastbeans use of the free and fastbeans double free. So the high level idea for fastbeans use of the free is that we want to find a fake chunk, collect fastbeans free chunk to point to, right? And then later on, we want to let those chunks goes back to T-cache bin, but then it's gonna follow the reverse order, right? And after that, we want to make sure that the fake chunk that we identified satisfy the condition so that by the time that the fastbean was moved, reversely to the T-cache bin, this chunk will be able to move there successfully. And then fastbean double free, which is what we talk about today. The high level idea is to make fastbean's chunk, one of the chunk being freed for twice. So that later on, when fastbean's chunk moved back to T-cache bin, it will still follow the reverse order, as well as that the black chunk, like the one that are in the middle, will be repeated in the T-cache bin, so that we convert from a fastbean's double free to a T-cache bin's double free. Okay, all right. So that's all about different kinds of vulnerabilities and also how we can trigger them. And then goes back to defense. So throughout this master, we mentioned 4 different types of a defense. Stack canary, non-NX, not executable stack, ASLR, and also PI. So for stack canary, the idea is that they put additional bytes in stack. And to bypass stack canary, you can leak the stack canary, using an arbitrary read or so on and so forth. And also you can overwrite the predefined canary to a value that it is deterministic or controlled by you. Also, you can just overwrite the function stack check fail, which we don't really mention. We don't have a practice for that in our semester, but also this is another option for you if you want to bypass that canary. So NX means that there's no stack execution. You cannot execute the instructions or the data that you put on stack, okay? That means that you cannot use shellcode anymore because shellcode will be stored on stack and it's gonna become instructions that will be executed. However, you can still, use the win function. You can still overwrite the values or the content on the stack with the address of the win function. You can also just use rob gadget because again, you're not putting any instructions on the stack, but instead you put function pointers or say instruction pointers, instruction addresses on stack. Okay, and then in terms of PI, PI is short for position independent code. That means that all the code will become an offset, not a like absolute instruction, not an absolute address. So that means that every time if you run PI along with ASLR, the base address will be changed. Okay. And that means that for win function, you need to know the base of the code segment so that you can allocate or you can locate win functions correctly during the runtime. And then for shell code, you can still do that because like there's nothing really related to positional like independent code for the the stack. And then for ROP, so it will require the base of leaf because again, like means that now instructions will be composed of base plus offset. And then for ROP gadget, because it's part of the code in libc, it will still be composed of base plus the offset. Okay. However, if we have PI enabled with ASLR, that means that every time the base will be changed, right? Then it means that for win function, you need to know the base of the code segment in order to locate the address of the win function in the runtime. And then for shell code, it means that you need to require the base of the stack every time if you want to locate the address of a shell code, because the base of a stack will also change over time, right? And then similarly for ROP gadget, because the ROP gadget will be the base plus the offset, you will need to know the base of the libc and the runtime so that you can locate the address of the ROP gadget in the runtime. Okay. All right. So in terms of polling, we've talked about 3 different kinds of instruction pointers. You can overwrite the save return address on stack, or you can overwrite the GOT table entry, or you can overwrite the hook functions in libc. So in the future, when you come up with a challenge, what you want to think in your mind is that, okay, first of all, what is this vulnerability? Is it, a use of the free? Is it a buffer overflow? Is it a format string? So on and so forth. And then the second is that you want to check what kind of defense is already turned on. Does it have ASLR? Does it have PI? Does it have stack canary, right? And then by the time that you constructed the tag, the goal for you is to enable arbitrary execution. Then you want to think about, okay, what is the instruction pointer that I can control? And what is the malicious what is the vulnerable place that I can overwrite to, right? So you want to find a vulnerable place that you want to overwrite to with, an instruction pointer that you can control. So the instruction pointer can be overwrite the saved return address, it can be the GOT table entry, or it can be hook functions in glibc. And your controllable instruction pointer can be your shell code, it can be your gadget, or it can be, a winning function. Okay. And to synthesize what we have talked about throughout the entire semester, I have this table for you, which is to, to check what kind of defense they have, and then what kind of attack that you can use, or like what kind of instruction pointers and the malicious code that you can use for different types of defense. All right. So that's it for everything that we have for this semester. Thank you very much for participating, and good luck for your final and assignment 3. Thank you.